Hello and welcome to Gale Opposing Viewpoints in Context, the Basics. I'm Daniel Bradford, the Los Osos High Library teacher. This screencast is designed to introduce you to the basics of using this database, which you should use for controversial issues research, such as global warming or the death penalty. We use this database instead of a Google search because a database is a much more powerful and efficient research tool than Google. A database gathers all the information we need for our topic with one search. It's much easier to evaluate the sources for credibility, and it's much easier to cite them since the citations are built into the database itself. And the sources that we find have a much higher degree of credibility than those found through a Google search. That's because the sources have been pre-selected for credibility before they're put into the database. Let's get started. First, go to the library webpage, www.lohslibrary.com, and click on the Research tab. Next, click on the database link, Gale Student Resource Center. On the next page, type in the password, Grizzlies, all lowercase letters, and click on Proceed. On this page, choose the second database, the one inside the red rectangle, Opposing Viewpoints in Context. And that takes us to the welcome page for Opposing Viewpoints in Context. The main search field is at the top of the page inside the red rectangle, and you can type in any topic you can think of and search to see if this database has information on it. Today I'm going to use the sample topic of global warming. But before we do that, let's look at the Browse Issues button for just a second. If you click on Browse Issues, you can see a list of all of the topics covered by this database. This is useful if you've already selected a topic and want to see if this database covers it. And it's also useful if you haven't selected a topic and want to find one. You can browse issues and see a list of topics that may interest you. We'll come back and explore Browse Issues more in just a moment. But first, let's do our sample search. I typed in the search term global warming and then clicked search. That took me to this page. At the top is an overview of the topic of global warming, and underneath that are many research sources. For example, Viewpoints, which are actually opinions arguing for and against global warming, so you should be aware that those are opinions and not facts. And underneath that, all fact resources, such as articles from newspapers and magazines. Notice that one search gives you access to multiple resources. If we scroll down the page, you can see that we also have academic journals, statistics, pre-screened websites, and of course reference. And reference means that these are excerpts from reference books. So you're actually looking at pages from books when you click on reference. Notice that with this one search we found 642 magazine articles and 106 excerpts from books. And we found 7 pre-screened websites. When I say pre-screened, I mean they have already been evaluated for credibility. Don't forget to explore related topics. That's in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. So for example, you could explore the related topic of carbon offsets or climate change. Now let's look at a sample magazine article. I'm going to choose the first one that came up in search results, Obama's fracking folly. Now when I click on that, it will take me to the entire article, and there's the title of the article at the top. If I don't want to read the article, I can click on the listen icon, and the computer will actually read the article to me word for word. On the far right hand side we find the tools, and there are several important tools that you should know how to use. First, you should know how to use the email tool, and you should always, and I repeat always, email all the articles that you find to yourself before you log out of your session. You should also email them to your work partners if you're part of a research team. We'll also look at the Save button and the Highlights and Notes button. Notice that the citation is already done. When I scrolled to the bottom of that article, the source citation was already waiting for me. So I don't have to do a works cited. All I have to do is check this works cited for accuracy, and this one is accurate, and then put it into my Works Cited page. So this is going to save me a lot of research time. Now let's look at how to highlight or add notes. If you want to annotate an article and share it with a research partner or with a teacher, it's very simple. All you have to do is highlight the text that you want to annotate or make a note about with your mouse. Then click on the Highlights and Notes tool. Then click Save. And I wanted to make a note about 350.org, which is an organization that the author mentioned. I want to do more research and see if that organization can provide me with additional research material. Once I clicked on Save, I can click on Highlights and Notes, and it will show all of the highlights and notes that I made for this article. So far I've only made one, and you can see that it pops up and shows me the text that I highlighted and the notes that I made about it. So you can make a note to your research partners or to your teacher. And of course we click Save above Highlights and Notes, and that will save it in our folder. And now let's have a look at the folder. Once again, a warning. In this database, your articles will not be saved after you log out. So make sure you email everything you find to yourself and to your research team partners if you're working with partners. If we go to the top of the page, we can see all of the items that we've saved. So far, I clicked on the Save button for 3 different research topics or 3 research articles. When I click on that, it takes me to this page, and you notice that I clicked boxes to the far left-hand side because I want to email all of these things to myself. Under Tools, I click on Email, and then this box pops up. So now I fill in all the fields and click Send. But before I do that, I'm going to change the format to PDF. That will make it easier to download and to read the articles. Just remember that you always should change it to PDF unless you have some reason to keep it on HTML. Also remember that each article is going to be a separate email. So I sent 3 articles, and that means I'm going to get 3 separate emails in my inbox. If you want to do a Works Cited, again, make sure that those boxes on the far left-hand side are checked. Click on Citation Tools under Tools, and it will create a Works Cited for you. This box will pop up, and you can choose either MLA 7th edition or APA 6th edition. Click on Download, and it will download the Works Cited for all of the articles that are in your saved folder. If you have access to EasyBib, EndNote, ProCite, or any of these other tools, you can also choose to export to those, and they will create the Works Cited for you. Remember to use statistics. One great thing about this database is that it will look up statistics for you and even provide you with charts. Here's a wonderful chart that I found in my global warming search that I could download and insert into a PowerPoint, for example. And this chart is already cited. Now let's go back to the Browse Issues button. When I clicked on the Browse Issues button, you can see I got an alphabetical list of all of the topics that this database covers. In fact, the list is so long that I only showed you a very small portion of the topics. So I can always browse this to see if I've got the right search terms, and I can always browse this if I'm trying to select something for research and I'm not sure what I want to do yet. Now, the databases won't always have the most up-to-date information because they are not updated daily. So to make sure that you have the most recent information about your topic, go to Google News and search for your topic. I'm going to switch topics and search for fracking. When I do that, I get a list of results. Now, these results are going to have to be evaluated for credibility because they're not found in a database. They're found through Google. So, I'm going to stick with major newspapers and magazines because those are much more likely to be credible sources. So, for example, the first result here is from the Washington Post. I know that that's a national and respected newspaper, so I can trust this as a credible source. Just a couple of hints. Remember, write down your search terms before you start searching. This will save you a lot of time. Write down alternate terms that you can use as well if you don't find anything using your first term. Always check the dates of the sources you use. Don't use sources that are too old. Try and find things that have been published within the last 6 months or the last year. If not, a good rule of thumb is to not use anything older than 3 years. And always, always, always email your work to yourself and your research team members before you log out. And find current news using Google News. I hope that these research hints have been helpful. If you have any more questions, always stop by the library and I can walk you through other features of the database and help you with your research. Thanks for listening.